The starship Endeavour moved slowly through the dark space between stars. Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge, looking out at the distant planet that glowed blue and green in the darkness. This was it. After months of traveling, they had finally reached the Zephyrian homeworld. Jake was a tall man with short brown hair and serious eyes. He had served in Earth's space fleet for 15 years, but this mission was different from any he had done before. This time, they were not explorers or soldiers. They were diplomats, sent to make friends with an alien race that had contacted Earth just 1 year ago. "Commander, we're getting a signal from the planet," said Lieutenant Bobby Chun from his station. Bobby was young, maybe 25, with black hair and quick hands that moved over his controls like a pianist. He was the head of security, but Jake hoped they would not need his skills on this trip. "Put it on the main screen," Jake said. The screen flickered, and an alien face appeared. The creature looked almost human, but not quite. Its skin was pale, green, and its eyes were large and yellow. It had no hair, and its ears were pointed like a knife blade. When it spoke, its voice was smooth and pleasant. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the alien said. "I am Kethfer, leader of the Zephyrian people. We are honored by your visit. Please, come down to our planet. We have prepared a great celebration for you." Jake smiled and stepped forward. "Thank you, Kethfer. We are happy to be here. My name is Commander Jake Harrison. We bring greetings from Earth and hope for friendship between our peoples." "Excellent," Kethfer said. His mouth curved in what might have been a smile, but it showed too many teeth. "Land at the coordinates we are sending you, our finest warriors. We'll escort you to our great hall." The screen went dark. Jake turned to his crew. Dr. Lisa Martinez stood near the medical station, checking her equipment one more time. She was a small woman with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her brown eyes looked worried, but they always did before a mission. "Lisa, are you ready?" Jake asked. "As ready as I can be," she said. "I've studied everything we know about Zephyrian. Biology, but that's not much. I have medicine for most common problems, but if something goes wrong—" "Nothing will go wrong," said Ambassador Catherine Wells, walking onto the bridge. Catherine was older than the others, maybe 50, with gray hair and a calm face. She had negotiated with difficult people all over Earth. Jake hoped aliens would not be too different. "The shuttle is ready, Commander," Bobby said. "I've loaded extra weapons, just in case." "We won't need weapons," Catherine said firmly. "We're here to make friends, not enemies." Jake nodded, but he was glad Bobby had brought the weapons anyway. Space was dangerous, and aliens were still unknown. Better to be safe than sorry. They took the shuttle down to the planet's surface. The world looked beautiful from above, with blue oceans and green forests. Cities sparkled like jewels in the sunlight. It looked peaceful, almost like Earth. They landed on a platform made of smooth white stone. Hundreds of Zephyrians waited for them, all wearing long robes in bright colors. They were tall, taller than humans, and they moved in a strange way, like dancers or cats. Kethfer stepped forward as the humans left their shuttle. Up close, he was even more impressive. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, and his robes were covered in gold thread that caught the light. But it was his eyes that made Jake uncomfortable. They were cold, like a snake's eyes. "Welcome to Zephyr Prime," Kethfer said, spreading his arms wide. "Come, we have prepared a feast in your honor." They walked through the city streets. Buildings were tall and graceful, reaching up toward the sky like fingers. Gardens full of strange flowers filled the air with sweet smells. Everything was beautiful, but Jake noticed something odd. There were no children anywhere, no old people either. All the Zephyrians looked exactly the same age, somewhere between 30 and 40 in human years. The great hall was enormous, the ceiling so high it disappeared in shadows. Long tables filled the room, covered with food that looked and smelled wonderful. The Zephyrians had prepared dishes from many different worlds, not just their own. "Please, sit," Kethfer said, pointing to chairs at the head table. "You will eat, and then we will talk about the future." The food was delicious. Jake tried dishes he had never seen before, flavors that made his mouth water. The Zephyrians were good hosts. keeping their guests' cups full and asking polite questions about Earth. But as the meal went on, Jake began to feel uneasy. The questions were too specific, too focused on Earth's defenses and weapons. HFY wanted to know about human military technology, about their ships and their soldiers. "We are a peaceful people," Catherine said, when HFY asked about Earth's nuclear weapons. "We prefer to solve problems with words, not violence." "How admirable," HFY said, but his smile looked hungry. "And yet, you must have weapons." "All intelligent species develop weapons. It is the way of survival." "We have some weapons," Jake admitted, "but we use them only to defend ourselves." "Of course," HFY said, "defense is very important. Perhaps you would be willing to share your defensive technology with us? We could offer you much in return." Jake and Catherine exchanged glances. This was not what they had expected. They had come to trade food and peaceful technology, not weapons. "I'm afraid we can't do that," Catherine said carefully. "Earth's policy is very clear. We don't share military technology with new contacts." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. HFY's smile faded, and his yellow eyes grew cold. "How unfortunate," he said slowly. "We had hoped for a more cooperative relationship." "We can cooperate in many ways," Catherine said quickly. "Science, medicine, art, culture. There are so many possibilities for peaceful exchange." HFY stood up slowly. He was much taller than Jake had realized, and suddenly the room felt dangerous. "Let me tell you about cooperation, Ambassador Wells," HFY said. His voice was no longer pleasant. "In this galaxy, there are two kinds of species, the strong and the food. The Zephyrians are strong. We have conquered 47 worlds in the last 100 years. We have eliminated 23 different species that were too weak to deserve life." Jake's hand moved toward his weapon, but HFY was faster than anything human. His arm shot out, and suddenly there were claws where his fingers had been, long and sharp as knives. They struck Catherine in the neck before anyone could react. "This venom has killed the leaders of all those 23 species," HFY said, watching Catherine's face with scientific interest. "It causes complete nervous system failure. Death comes in seconds, but those seconds feel like hours of pure agony. It is how we judge whether a species deserves to live. If they can survive our test, they are worthy of joining our empire. If not..." He stepped back, waiting for Catherine to fall. The other Zephyrians in the hall had all gone silent, watching with the same cold interest as their leader. But Catherine didn't fall. She staggered for a moment, her hand going to her neck where the claws had struck. Her face went pale, and sweat broke out on her forehead. But she didn't collapse. She didn't scream. Instead, she straightened up and looked HFY directly. "In the eye? Is that all?" she asked, her voice steady despite the pain Jake could see in her eyes. For the first time since they had met him, HFY looked surprised. His yellow eyes widened, and he took a step backward. "Impossible," he whispered. "That venom should have killed you in seconds." Catherine smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. "Lucky for us, humans are harder to kill than you thought." The great hall fell completely silent. Every Zephyrian in the room stared at Catherine Wells as she stood there, alive and defiant. HFY's mouth hung open, showing his sharp teeth. His claws were still extended, dripping with the deadly venom. That should have killed the human ambassador in seconds. Jake Harrison's hand moved to his weapon, but he forced himself to stay calm. Bobby Chen was already shifting his position, ready to fight, but Jake caught his eye and shook his head slightly. They needed to understand what was happening before they acted. "Are you still standing?" HFY demanded, his voice no longer smooth and controlled. "That poison has never failed. Never. It kills within seconds. It has ended the lives of thousands of beings." Catherine touched the wound on her neck. Blood seeped between her fingers, and Jake could see that her hand was shaking slightly. But her voice remained steady. "Maybe your poison just isn't as good as you think it is," she said. Dr. Lisa Martinez stepped forward quickly, her medical scanner already in her hand. "Catherine, let me check you," she said urgently. "I'm fine, Lisa," Catherine said, but she let the doctor scan her anyway. Lisa's eyes widened as she read the results. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Then louder, Jake. You need to see this." Jake moved to look at the scanner while keeping his eyes on Kethfer. The Zephyrian leader was still staring at Catherine like she was some kind of ghost. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked quietly. "The venom is definitely in her system," Lisa said, her voice filled with amazement. "I can detect it in her bloodstream. But look at this." She pointed to another reading. "Her liver is processing it, breaking it down. Her immune system is fighting it off like it's just a bad infection." "That's not possible," Kethfer said, but he had heard every word. "No species has ever survived direct injection of our venom. It attacks the nervous system directly. It should shut down all brain function." Within 10 seconds, Lisa looked up from her scanner, and Jake could see the wheels turning in her mind. As the chief medical officer, she knew more about human biology than anyone else on the ship. "Jake," she said slowly, "do you remember what Earth was like when humans evolved?" "It's dangerous," Jake said, not sure where she was going with this. "More than dangerous, deadly. Earth had more venomous creatures than almost any world we've discovered. Snakes, spiders, scorpions, jellyfish, plants, fungi, mint. Humans didn't just survive on Earth. We thrived there. We had to develop immunity too. Hundreds of different toxins just to live." She turned to face Kethfer, her fear replaced by scientific excitement. "Your venom might be deadly to most species, but humans evolved on a world where everything was trying to poison us. Our livers are incredibly efficient at breaking down toxins. Our immune systems are designed to fight off foreign substances. What kills other species might just make us sick." Kethfer's eyes narrowed. "You lie. No species could survive on such a world." "Earth is still like that," Bobby said, speaking for the first time since they had entered the hall.
"My grandmother
"Was bitten by a rattlesnake when I was a kid. Nearly died, but she lived. My uncle got stung by a box jellyfish in Australia. Hurt like hell, but he was fine after a few days in the hospital. We have medicine for most Earth toxins now," Lisa added. "But even without medicine, humans can survive things that would kill most other species. We're just built that way." Was beginning to understand. "How many other advantages do we have that we don't even think about?" "I don't know," Lisa said, "but I'm starting to think there might be quite a few." Kethfer had been listening to this conversation with growing alarm. His confident smile was completely gone now, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. "Guards!" he called out in a harsh voice. Instantly, dozens of Zephyrian warriors appeared from hidden doorways around the hall. They were bigger than the others, wearing armor made of some kind of black metal. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. "You will come with us," Kethfer said to the humans. "We need to study you. We need to understand how you survived." "I don't think so," Jake said, his hand moving to his weapon. "You have no choice," Kethfer said. "You are 4 beings against hundreds. You cannot fight us all." Catherine stepped forward, still bleeding from her neck wound but moving with determination. "You made a mistake, Kethfer," she said. "You told us about the 23 species you destroyed. You told us about the 47 worlds you conquered. You told us exactly what kind of monsters you are. And now you know we can survive your poison," Jake added. "Which means other species might be able to survive it too, if they know what to look for. That information will die with you," Kethfer snarled. Bobby laughed, and the sound was not pleasant. "You really don't understand humans, do you?" "What do you mean?" Kethfer demanded. "We always have a backup plan," Bobby said. "Lisa, how long ago did you start transmitting?" Lisa checked her medical scanner, which Jake now realized was doing more than just checking Catherine's condition. "About 5 minutes ago," she said cheerfully. "Everything that's happened in this hall has been recorded and transmitted to our ship. And our ship has been transmitting it to Earth. And Earth has been transmitting it to every allied species in this sector." Kethfer's face went pale green, which Jake supposed was the Zephyrian equivalent of turning white. "By now, half the galaxy knows about your little genocide hobby," Catherine said. "They know about your venom, and they know that humans can survive it." "You're lying," Kethfer said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Are we?" Jake asked. "You been in space longer?" "Than humans. Don't you have emergency protocols? Automatic transmissions when your people are in danger? The truth was, Jake had activated the emergency beacon the moment Kethfer had attacked Catherine. Everything that happened was being recorded and transmitted automatically, with standard procedure for any first contact mission. Besides, Lisa said, still working on her scanner, I've been analyzing the Venom composition. It's actually not that complex. Any decent xenobiologist could create a neutralizing agent once they know what they're looking for. You think you're so clever, Kethfer said, his voice rising, but you're still trapped here. You're still outnumbered. Your ship cannot reach you in time to save you. Maybe not, Jake admitted, but you're missing something important. What? Jake smiled, and it was the same kind of smile Catherine had given earlier. Not pleasant, but full of confidence. You tested us with your poison because you wanted to know if we were strong enough to be worth keeping alive. Well, now you know. But here's the thing about humans, Kethver. We don't just survive poison. We survive everything. Heat, cold, radiation, disease, starvation, injury. We survive things that kill other species, and then we come back stronger. Impossible, Kethver whispered. Is it? Catherine asked. You've studied our transmissions, haven't you? You know our history? How many times have humans almost gone extinct? Ice ages, volcanoes, plagues, wars. We've survived them all. And every time we survive something, we learn from it. And now we've learned about you, Bobby added, about your methods, your weapons, your weaknesses. We have no weaknesses, Kethver said, but he was backing away from the humans now. Lisa looked up from her scanner with a grin. Actually, you do. Your venom is based on a protein chain that breaks down quickly in high-temperature environments. Raise someone's body temperature by just a few degrees, and your poison becomes harmless. That's impossible to do safely, Kethver said. For most species, maybe, Jake said. But humans run hot. Our normal body temperature would be a fever for most other species. And when we're in danger, when we're fighting for our lives, our temperature goes up even more. Catherine touched her neck again. The bleeding had stopped, and the swelling was already going down. Your perfect weapon doesn't work on us, Kethver, she said. And now the whole galaxy is going to know it. Kethver's yellow eyes blazed with fury as he realized the humans had outmaneuvered him. His perfect plan to eliminate another weak species had turned into a disaster. The secret of Zephyrian power was spreading across the galaxy, and these strange creatures from Earth were still alive when they should have been dead. Kill them, he snarled to his guards. Kill them all. Now, the armored Zephyrian warriors raised their energy weapons, but Jake Harrison was already moving. Years of military training took over as he dove behind one of the long dining tables, pulling Catherine with him. Bobby Chen went the other direction, grabbing Lisa and rolling behind a massive stone pillar. Energy bolts sizzled through the air, where they had been standing just seconds before. The beautiful feast table exploded into splinters as the alien weapons tore through it. The smell of burning wood and melted metal filled the air. Stay low, Jake shouted to his team. These weapons pack a punch. Bobby popped up from behind his pillar and returned fire with his human pistol. The energy beam struck one of the guards in the chest, and the warrior stumbled backward. The guard's armor was damaged, but he wasn't dead. Your armor's tough, Bobby called out, but not perfect. Jake looked around the great hall, his mind working quickly. The room was huge, with dozens of tables, pillars, and decorative statues. The Zephyrians had built it to impress visitors, but now all that decoration was providing cover for the humans. Lisa, can you get to that doorway? Jake asked, pointing to an exit on the far side of the hall. I think so, she said, clutching her medical bag. Bobby, cover her. Catherine, stay with me. I can fight, Catherine said, touching the small sidearm she carried. I know you can. You're still dealing with that poison. I need you to conserve your strength. More energy bolts flew overhead, shattering ancient stone carvings and setting tapestries on fire. The Zephyrian guards were advancing slowly, using their numbers to surround the humans. Bobby laid down covering fire as Lisa sprinted from pillar to pillar, making her way toward the exit. She was fast and small, harder to hit than the others. But one of the guards anticipated her movement and fired directly at her path. The energy bolt caught Lisa in the shoulder, spinning her around and slamming her against a wall. She cried out in pain but kept moving, using her momentum to roll behind another table. "Lisa," Jake shouted. "I'm okay," she called back, though her voice was tight with pain. "It hurts, but I can still move." Jake was amazed. On most worlds, an energy weapon blast would have killed or at least knocked unconscious any living being. But Lisa was still fighting, still thinking clearly, despite what should have been a devastating wound. "Bobby, did you see that?" Jake called. "Yeah," Bobby replied, firing at another guard. Tough as nails, just like always. Kethver was shouting orders to his warriors, but Jake could hear the frustration in his voice. The humans weren't dying as quickly as they should. They were adapting to the situation, using the room's layout against their attackers. Jake studied the hall's architecture. Zephyrians had built it for ceremony, not combat. The pillars were placed for artistic effect, not tactical advantage. But humans were good at improvising. "Catherine, see that balcony up there?" Jake pointed to a decorative gallery that ran around the upper level of the hall. "Yes, if we can get up there, we'll have a better position. High ground is always good. And a fight? How do we get there?" "The stairs are on the other side of the room." Jake smiled grimly. "We don't use the stairs." He fired several quick shots at the guards, forcing them to take cover. Then he grabbed one of the heavy ceremonial banners that hung from the ceiling. The fabric was strong, designed to last for centuries. "Psst. Bobby, I need 30 seconds, Jake shouted. "You got it," Bobby replied. Popping up to fire rapidly at the advancing guards, Jake wrapped the banner around his hand and began climbing. The fabric held his weight as he pulled himself up toward the balcony. It was something he had learned. In military training, most species wouldn't have the grip strength or the courage to try it. Catherine followed him, moving more slowly because of the poison in her system, but still managing to climb. Her determination impressed Jake. Most beings would have collapsed by now. She was still fighting. They reached the balcony just as the banner began to tear. Jake pulled Catherine up and immediately looked for defensive positions. The gallery had thick stone railings that would provide good cover. From their new position, Jake could see the entire battle. Lisa had reached the doorway, but found it blocked by more guards. Bobby was still behind his pillar, but the Zephyrians were closing in on him from multiple directions. "We need to even the odds," Jake muttered. The balcony ran around the entire hall, supported by massive stone arches. Jake noticed that some of the decorative elements looked loose, weakened by age or poor maintenance. "Catherine, can you shoot?" "Of course," she said, drawing her sidearm. "Good, start picking off guards from up here. I'm going to try something." Jake moved along the balcony to where a large stone gargoyle sat on the railing. The carving was beautiful, but heavy, probably weighing several hundred pounds. He put his shoulder against it and pushed. The gargoyle didn't budge at first. But Jake had spent years in Earth's military, lifting weights and building muscle in the planet's heavy gravity. What seemed impossible to most species was just hard work for a human. The stone creature began to rock on its base. Jake pushed harder, using his legs and back muscles. With a grinding sound, the gargoyle tipped over the edge. It fell 20 feet and crashed directly onto one of the Zephyrian guards. The warrior disappeared under tons of stone, his energy weapon clattering across the floor. The other guards looked up in shock. They hadn't expected an attack from above, especially not from someone who could move heavy objects by sheer physical strength. "Bobby, move now," Jake shouted. Bobby understood immediately. He sprinted from his cover toward Lisa's position, firing as he ran. The guards were distracted by the falling gargoyle, giving him the opening he needed. Meanwhile, Catherine was proving to be an excellent shot. Her diplomatic training had included weapons instruction, and she was putting it to good use. Her precise fire forced several guards to abandon their positions. Kethver was becoming more desperate by the minute. He had expected an easy slaughter, but the humans were turning his own building against him. They were using tactics he had never seen before, adapting to the situation in real time. "Bring in more warriors," he commanded one of his officers. "Sir, we already have 50 soldiers in the hall," the officer replied. "Then bring 100. Bring them all if you have to." But Jake could see that numbers weren't going to solve Kethfer's problem. The Great Hall was only so big, and too many soldiers would just get in each other's way. The humans had turned the beautiful ceremonial space into a maze of cover and obstacles. Lisa had reached Bobby, and together they were working their way toward another exit. Her wounded shoulder was slowing her down, but she was still moving, still thinking. She had used her medical supplies to treat the energy burn, and the pain medication was helping her function. Jake, she called up to the balcony. I'm reading. Massive energy signatures outside the building. I think they're bringing in heavy weapons. How long do we have? Jake shouted back. Maybe 5 minutes before they can set up. Ouch! Jake looked at Catherine. Despite the poison in her system and the stress of combat, she was still alert and ready to fight. Her face was pale and sweat beaded on her forehead, but her hands were steady. We need to get out of here, he said. The shuttle is too far, Catherine replied. We'll never make it across the open ground. Then we don't go to the shuttle, Jake. Said we make them come to us? He pulled out his communicator and contacted the Endeavor. This is Harrison. Emergency evacuation. Beam us up now. Doc Commander, came the reply from the ship. Something is blocking our transporters. Can't get a lock on you, Jake cursed. The Zephyrians had thought of everything, or so they believed. Bobby, he called down. Remember that emergency kit in your pack? Bobby grinned, despite the danger. The one we're not supposed to use unless things are really desperate. Things are really desperate. I like the way you think, Commander. Bobby Chen reached into his emergency pack and pulled out a small metal device about the size of his fist. It looked harmless enough, but Jake knew what it could do. Every human military unit carried one, but they were only supposed to use it when facing complete annihilation. What is that thing? Catherine asked from their position on the balcony. It's electromagnetic pulse grenade, Jake explained. We'll shut down all electronic devices in a quarter-mile radius. Including our own equipment, Catherine pointed out. Including our own equipment, Jake agreed. But it will also shut down their weapons, their communications, and their transporter jammers. Bobby looked up at them from below. On your signal. Commander. More Zephyrian guards poured into the hall. Oh, Jake counted at least 60 now, maybe more. They had given up trying to capture the humans alive. Now they just wanted them dead. Lisa, how are you holding up? Jake called. I've been better, she replied, pressing a fresh bandage to her shoulder wound. But I'm still breathing. The energy blast cauterized most of the damage. Hurts like crazy, but I'm not bleeding out. Jake shook his head in amazement. Lisa was describing injuries that would have killed most alien species. Energy weapons were designed to cause massive trauma to living tissue. But somehow, human biology was tough enough to survive even direct hits. Bobby, do it, Jake ordered. Bobby activated the pulse grenade and rolled it toward the center of the hall. The device beeped once, twice, then unleashed a wave of electromagnetic energy that swept through the building like an invisible storm. Every light in the hall went out instantly. The Zephyrian energy weapons died in their hands, reduced to useless metal. Emergency lighting flickered on briefly, then failed as well. The hall was plunged into near-complete darkness, but humans had better night vision than most species. It was another gift from Earth's dangerous evolution. Predators hunted at night, so humans had learned to see in the dark.
How we fight on?
Our terms, Jake said quietly. The Zephyrians were shouting in confusion, stumbling around in the darkness. Their weapons were dead, their communication systems were down, and they couldn't see their targets. But the humans could see them. Jake and Catherine climbed down from the balcony using the banner again. Jake's military training had included night combat, and he moved through the darkness like a ghost. Catherine followed, moving more slowly. Because of the poison, but still managing to stay quiet, Bobby and Lisa were already moving, using the confusion to get closer to the main exit. Bobby had switched to his backup weapon, a simple projectile pistol that didn't need electronics to function. It was an old-fashioned design, but it worked just fine in the dark. The first Zephyrian guard never saw Bobby coming. The human appeared out of the shadows and struck with the butt of his pistol, dropping the alien warrior without a sound. Bobby grabbed the guard's armor and weapons, even though they were now useless. "These might come in handy later," he whispered to Lisa. Jake reached the floor and immediately moved toward Kethfer's last known position. The Zephyrian leader was somewhere in the darkness, probably trying to reach the exits or call for backup. But his communication devices were dead, just like everything else. "Kethfer," Jake called out, his voice echoing in the dark hall. "Where are you going? I thought you wanted to test us." "This is trickery," Kethfer's voice came from somewhere to Jake's left. "Cowardly human technology. Cowardly." The voice came from another direction. "You're the one who attacks unarmed diplomats with poison." Jake was moving toward Kethfer's voice, using the sound to track him. But he was being careful. The Zephyrian leader might not have energy weapons anymore, but he still had those deadly claws. "You think you have one," Kethfer snarled, "but you are still trapped here. My warriors will find you in the darkness, will they?" Bobby asked from yet another direction, as I count at least 10 of your warriors who are already down. Turns out they're not very good at fighting when they can't see. It was true. Jake could hear sounds of struggle throughout the hall as Zephyrian guards bumped into each other, tripped over furniture, and generally made easy targets for the humans who could actually see what they were doing. Lisa had found a first aid station near one of the exits. She was treating her wounds properly now, using human medical supplies that didn't need power to work. The energy blast had done serious damage, but she was already stabilizing. "Jake," she called softly, "I'm reading something interesting on my manual scanner." "What is it?" "The Zephyrians aren't just having trouble seeing, they're having trouble with the temperature, too. It's only dropped about 10 degrees since the power went out, but they're already moving slower." Jake filed that information away. Another weakness to exploit. Humans could function in a wide range of temperatures. But apparently, the Zephyrians were more sensitive. He was getting closer to Kethfer now. He could hear the alien leader's breathing, fast and shallow. Kethfer was scared, Jake realized. For the first time in probably centuries, the mighty Zephyrian leader was afraid. "You want to know something funny, Kethfer?" Jake said, still moving through the darkness. "We didn't come here to fight. We came here to be friends." "Lies," Kethfer spat. "No lies. We brought gifts. Art, music, literature, things to share. We wanted to learn about your culture, your history," he thought. "We could help each other." Jake could see Kethfer now, crouched behind an overturned table. The alien leader's night vision was clearly much worse than human vision. He was almost blind in the darkness. "But you showed us who you really are," Jake continued. "Aquila? A destroyer, someone who enjoys causing pain." "I am strong," Kethfer said. "Strength is the only thing that matters in this galaxy, is it?" Catherine appeared out of the shadows on Kethfer's other side. She had circled around while Jake distracted him, because right now you look pretty weak to me. Kethfer spun toward her voice, his claws extended. But Catherine was ready for him. She had been watching, learning his attack patterns. When he lunged, she stepped aside and brought her pistol down on his wrist. The impact made Kethfer howl. With pain, his claws retracted involuntarily, and he clutched his injured arm to his chest. "That's for the poison," Catherine said calmly. Jake stepped out of the shadows behind Kethfer. "It's over. Your weapons are down, your communications are dead, and half your guards are unconscious. Surrender." "Never," Kethfer snarled. "The leader of the Zephyrian Empire? I do not surrender to inferior species." "Inferior?" Bobby's voice came from the darkness. "We're the ones still standing. You got lucky. Your primitive technology disrupted our systems temporarily. But backup power will be restored soon. More warriors are coming. You cannot escape." Lisa limped over to join the group, her wounded shoulder bandaged but functional. "Actually, we can. The electromagnetic pulse disabled the transporter jammers. Our ship can beam us up any time now." "Then why don't you leave?" Kethfer asked. "Run back to your little planet and hide." Jake looked at his team. Catherine poisoned, but still fighting. Lisa wounded, but still thinking. Bobby outnumbered, but still standing. They were all looking at him, waiting for his decision. "We're not running," Jake said finally. "We came here to make contact with your people, and we're going to finish the job." "What do you mean?" Kethfer demanded. Catherine smiled in the darkness. We're going to tell everyone about this. Every species in the galaxy is going to know what the Zephyrians really are. Murderers, bullies, genocidal maniacs who use poison to kill innocent beings. And they're going to know that your poison doesn't work on humans, Lisa added. Which means it probably doesn't work on other species either if they know how to treat it. You're going to start getting visitors, Kethfer, Bobby said. Species you thought you had destroyed. Survivors who want justice. And now they'll know how to fight back. Kethfer's face went pale green with fear. Cannot do this. We are too powerful. We have conquered too many worlds. You conquered them with fear, Jake said. Fear of your poison, fear of your reputation. But fear only works when people don't know how to fight back. The lights in the hall suddenly flickered back on. Emergency power was being restored, just as Kethfer had predicted. But it was too late for the Zephyrian leader. His advantage was gone. His secret was out, and the humans were still alive. Commander Harrison, came a voice from Jake's communicator. This is the Endeavor. We have transporter lock, ready to beam you up on your signal. Jake looked at Kethfer one more time. The alien leader, who had seemed so powerful and confident, was now just a frightened bully caught in his own trap. That Venom should have killed you in seconds, Kethfer whispered, his voice full of disbelief. Jake smiled as he activated his communicator. Lucky for the galaxy, humans are harder to kill than you thought. Energize, he said into the device. Last thing Kethfer saw was the humans disappearing in columns of light, taking with them the knowledge that would destroy his empire. 3 months after the incident on Zephyr Prime, Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the starship Endeavor, looking out at a sight that still amazed him. Dozens of alien ships floated in space around them, representing species from across the galaxy. They'd all come to meet the humans who had survived the impossible. Commander, we're receiving another request for landing permission. Lieutenant Bobby Chen reported from his station. This one is from the Altarian Republic. They want to discuss forming a defense alliance. Jake nodded. The requests had been coming in daily ever since word spread about what happened in Kethfer's Hall. Species that had lived in terror of the Zephyrians for decades were suddenly finding hope. Dr. Lisa Martinez entered the bridge, her left arm still in a support brace from the energy weapon blast. The wound had healed well, but she would need another month before full function returned. She carried a data pad filled with medical reports. Jake, you need to see this, she said, handing him the pad. I've been working with xenobiologists from 12 different species, analyzing Zephyrian venom samples. What did you find? Jake asked. Amazing things. The venom isn't nearly as effective as the Zephyrians claimed. It only works on species with very specific nervous system structures. About 60% of known intelligent species should be able to survive it with proper medical treatment. Why didn't anyone know this before? Lisa's expression darkened. Because the Zephyrians made sure no one survived to study it. They killed entire populations, destroyed all medical records, wiped out anyone who might have discovered the truth. Ambassador Catherine Wells walked onto the bridge, looking much healthier than she had 3 months ago. The poison had finally worked its way completely out of her system, though she still had a small scar on her neck where Kethfer's claws had struck. The Galactic Council meeting just ended, she announced. They've officially declared the Zephyrian Empire a threat to galactic peace. A joint task force is being formed to liberate the conquered worlds. Will Earth be joining the task force? Bobby asked. Earth has been asked to lead it, Catherine said with a smile. Apparently word has gotten around about human resilience. Several species specifically requested human commanders for the liberation fleets. Jake felt a mixture of pride and concern. Humans had wanted to be peaceful explorers, but the galaxy seemed determined to make them into warriors. There's something else, Catherine continued. We've been receiving messages from survivors on Zephyrian-controlled worlds. People who went into hiding when their planets were conquered. They're starting to come out, organizing resistance movements.
Oh.
Many survivors are we talking about? Jake asked. Millions, maybe tens of millions. The Zephyrians thought they had wiped out entire species, but life finds a way. Some people always survive, especially when they have hope. Lisa pulled up another report on her datapad. I've been coordinating with resistance medics on 15 different worlds. We're teaching them how to create antidotes for Zephyrian venom, using local materials. It's actually not that complicated once you know what you're looking for. The bridge's communication system chimed, and the face of an alien appeared on the main screen. It was a Corvani, a species that had supposedly been extinct for 50 years. The creature looked like a cross between a bird and a lizard, with bright blue feathers and intelligent golden eyes. "Commander Harrison," the Corvani said in accented but clear English. "My name is Zektar. I represent the Corvani Resistance. We have been hiding in the deep caves of our homeworld since the Zephyrians attacked. Your broadcast has given us hope. We are ready to fight back." "How many of you are there?" Jake asked. "Nearly 2 million Corvani still live. We've been preparing for this day for 50 years, building weapons, training fighters, waiting for the right moment. That moment is now." More faces appeared on the screen as other resistance groups joined the call. Veltaran, whose people were supposed to have died 30 years ago. A group of Nexari, who had been living in hidden colonies on asteroid bases. Species after species that the galaxy had written off as extinct. "This is incredible," Catherine whispered. "The Zephyrians didn't destroy these civilizations. They just drove them underground. And now they're all coming back," Bobby added, "because they know the Zephyrians' secret weapon doesn't work anymore." Jake looked at the faces on the screen, dozens of different species united by their suffering under Zephyrian rule. But now they looked determined, instead of afraid. "What do you need from us?" Jake asked. "Leadership," Zektar replied immediately. "The humans showed us that the Zephyrians can be beaten. Will you help us coordinate our efforts?" Jake looked at his crew. Lisa nodded eagerly, already thinking about the medical assistance she could provide. Bobby was checking weapon specifications and tactical data. Catherine was reviewing diplomatic protocols for multi-species alliances. "Will help," Jake said. "But understand, we're not looking to become the new Galactic Empire. We want to help you free yourselves, then step back and let you rebuild your own civilizations. That is why we trust you," another voice said. It was a Delcani female, her purple skin marked with ritual scars. The Zephyrians conquered to control. "You fought to survive, and now you offer to help us do the same." Over the next several hours, Jake and his crew worked with the resistance leaders to plan a coordinated uprising. The Zephyrian Empire controlled nearly 200 worlds, but they had spread themselves thin. Most of their forces were concentrated on the core worlds, leaving the outer territories only lightly defended. Lisa had been busy creating a galaxy-wide medical network, sharing treatment protocols for Zephyrian venom and other weapons. Work was saving lives on dozens of worlds as resistance fighters learned how to treat injuries that had previously been fatal. "I've got something interesting," she reported during a planning session. "The Corvani have been studying Zephyrian physiology for 50 years. They've discovered some significant weaknesses, such as," Catherine asked, "temperature sensitivity for one thing. Zephyrians can't function well outside a very narrow temperature. Range too hot or too cold, and they become sluggish and disoriented. That explains why they had trouble when the power went out in the hall," Bobby said. "There's more. Their venom production is tied to their emotional state. When they're calm and confident, the venom is at full potency. But when they're afraid or stressed, it becomes much weaker." Jake smiled. "So the more we fight back, the less dangerous they become." "Exactly. Fear is a two-way street." The Liberation Campaign began 6 months later with simultaneous uprisings on 47 worlds. The Zephyrians, who had grown comfortable with their reputation for invincibility, were caught completely off guard. Jake commanded the fleet that attacked the Zephyrian home system, but he wasn't alone. Ships from 36 different species fought alongside the human vessels. The Corvani provided fighters who knew Zephyrian tactics. The Veltarans contributed advanced shields that could deflect energy weapons. The Nexari brought cloaking technology that let smaller ships strike without warning. The final battle took place in orbit. Around Zephyr Prime, Kethfer's replacement, a younger Zephyrian named Velkin, tried to use the same intimidation tactics that had worked for centuries. "You cannot defeat us," Velkin broadcast to the Allied fleet. "We are the Zephyrian Empire. We have ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years." Jake opened a channel to respond. "Your empire was built on fear and lies. We're here to show the galaxy that you're just bullies who pick on people who can't fight back." The battle was shorter than expected. When the Zephyrian fleet realized their enemies weren't running away in terror, many ships surrendered rather than fight. The empire that had seemed so powerful crumbled in just 3 days. Kethver was found in his palace, trying to destroy records of Zephyrian atrocities. He was arrested by a joint team of human and Corvani soldiers. When he saw Jake among his captors, his face showed the same disbelief it had shown in the Great Hall months earlier. "This is impossible," he said. "You were supposed to die. Your species was supposed to be eliminated." "Humans don't eliminate easily," Jake replied. "Neither do any of the other species you tried to destroy. Trials took 2 years, but justice was finally served." Kethra and his followers were sentenced to life imprisonment on a remote world, where they would spend their remaining years helping to rebuild the civilizations they had destroyed. The galaxy was different now. Humans had earned a reputation not as conquerors, but as liberators and protectors. When new species were discovered, human diplomats were often called in to make first contact. When disasters struck, human rescue teams were among the first to respond. Jake Harrison found himself promoted to admiral, commanding a new type of fleet dedicated to exploration and protection rather than conquest. His ship, renamed the Alliance, carried crew members from dozens of species. Dr. Lisa Martinez established the Galactic Medical Corps, sharing human medical knowledge while learning from alien healers. Her work led to breakthrough treatments for diseases that had plagued multiple species for centuries. Bobby Chen became head of the new Galactic Defense Force, training security personnel from across the galaxy in human tactical methods.